Good morning. Good morning to the honorable ministers of the council, and good morning to all radio listeners, televiewers. I am Aaron Olabega, and I want to invite you and welcome you to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, October 12th, 2022. I would now invite Honorable Minister Anna Richardson for opening remarks.
Pleasant good morning, Honorable Prime Minister, colleague minister, members of the press, Mr. Labega. Thank you for hosting us this morning, and to the listening and viewing public. And of course, a special good morning to all senior citizens. I hereby provide a few updates concerning the Ministry of Justice. With regards to the legal position and new salary scales for the police force and other entities within the Ministry of Justice, I am pleased to announce that the CCSU on August 4th provided a positive response with some adjustments requested, and immediately the draft rechtspositieregeling and bezoldiging or police law and salary scales were sent on to the Council of Advice for their legal review, and we are now awaiting a response from same so that we can proceed. Once the necessary amendments requested and are confirmed by the Council of Advice is provided to the ministry, we will make those necessary adjustments. We will then send it on to His Excellency Governor Ajamu Bailey for signature, and finally it will be returned to my person for signature. At that time, the legal position of law enforcement would be ratified, and we can proceed with the reimbursements for our personnel that are entitled to. There should also be a review done by the Ombudsman, and thereafter all will be final after more than a decade of this particular stumbling block or stagnation, I could say, when it comes to the personnel matters of the Ministry of Justice. And finally, I just want to mention that the series of Have a Bay Unscripted continues. On Friday, October 29th, we will be airing episode 3, and I hope that the public is taking advantage of the information being shared by those who are currently incarcerated or have been released and have been making good strides thus far. Those are my opening statements for this time, and I'll be available for any questions that the media may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. I would now like to invite our Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, Minister Egbert Duran, for opening remarks.
Good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the media, the CoM staff, and a special good morning to all tuned in, the people of St. Martin. I would like to start by congratulating our incoming Governor, Ajamu Bailey, and wish him and his family Godspeed in this new endeavor, and also thank our outgoing Governor, Eugene Holliday, for all his years of service. In regards to the Ministry of Rummy, the District Cleaning Public Tender 2022-2025 is ongoing. Interested parties can receive the tender documents by doing the following: paying 360 guilders at the receiver's office, and email a copy of the receipt to vrummy.publictenders@stmartingov.org. So vrummy.publictenders@stmartingov.org. A copy of the tender documents will be then sent electronically. The documents are available until the tender date, which is October 31st, 2022. On Monday, October 17, 2022, an information session will be held at the office of the Ministry of Rummy with the Department of Infrastructure Management. We urge all interested parties to attend. This tender is seeing some first-time changes that I believe will contribute in better enabling us as government to manage the contracts. The relevant zones for this tender have been reduced from 13 to 7. This aligns with the format taken for other tenders and contracts within the ministry and makes it more efficient for our contract managers to control the work that is being done. Much more details has also been included where respective streets are concerned. This was done using our GIS Rummy mapping software, which allows us greater oversight as to which roads should be included in each zone. Over the last few days, we have begun some much-needed road repairs. Yesterday, staff of the ministry carried out work in the Cold Bay area, primarily on Orange Grove Road. These repairs were done using the aqua fault which allows us to quickly patch road surfaces. Today, the road will continue on Orange Grove Road area, and then we move over to Well Road. In the meantime, the ministry is working on finalizing the major road repair and resurfacing project, which is slated to start soon. We will keep the public abreast as we move forward so that everyone can be aware of the possible road closures and diversions. I want to take this time to recognize the hardworking staff of the Department of Infrastructure Management for putting their all into this endeavor. Last week, I took some time to personally visit a few homeowners in the Belvedere area who either recently had their homes repaired or are busy finalizing the repairs as we speak. I was very happy to see that the living conditions in some of these cases were drastically improved, and overall tenants were pleased based on the last time that I was there last year. For some, there are still some minor repairs that need to be carried out. I have taken this up with the SMHDF, and I hope that these can be done very soon. Staying in the Belvedere area, yesterday I attended the key handover ceremony for the tenants of Building A and B of Low Estate Belvedere of the Towers, as we call it. Some 16 keys were handed over to the respective tenants, whom I must say were generally happy with the progress made thus far. I want to take some time to thank all the stakeholders involved, namely the Ministry of ROMI, SMHDF, the NRPB, and the Trust Fund for their efforts in making this a reality. I also want to say thank you to my predecessors for the roles that they played as well, and recognize the contractors and their staff who continue to push forward so we can have all the towers rebuilt in the coming months. Thank you to one and all.
Thank you, Minister Duran.
I was thanking the stakeholders.
Oh, I missed that.
No problem. The Ministry of ROMI continues to address the streetlight issues we are currently facing in certain areas. Assessments are being carried out by GB, and I'm busy with GB, our main partner, who is tasked with the responsibility of maintaining our streetlight network. Yesterday, I was happy to see the installation of the streetlights at the Freedom Fighters roundabout by the Sundale School. Repairs were also carried out to the spotlights that help beautify, illuminate the roundabout at night. Just as the statue symbolizes strength and determination and dignity of our people in the face of hardship, I want us, the people of St. Martin, to remember that we are overcomers. Mr. Labega, that concludes my notifications for this morning, and I look forward to any questions members of the media might have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Before I move on, Minister Richardson has one remark to add.
Thank you so much, Mr. Labega. I just want to congratulate the police softball team on their win of the Emancipation tournament that they won last evening. So just want to say good morning and congratulations to the champions.
Hooray.
Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. At this time, I'd like to invite our Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of General Affairs, Silveria Jacobs, for remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Labega. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the media here present and those following. And of course, a good morning to the people of St. Martin. I would like to also take this opportunity to congratulate the newly sworn in Governor of St. Martin as we celebrate our 12th anniversary as a country during Constitution Day on Monday, October 10th. We also celebrate a new era of governorship under His Excellency Governor Ajamu G. Bailey. He accepted his office in a solemn meeting of Parliament with very strong words of continuing to pass the torch, or taking up now the torch of wisdom, of perseverance, of integrity and grace. And I do look forward to the working relationship that will come from the collaborations as government and the governor working together to ensure the continued growth, prosperity, and development of St. Martin. Congratulations to you and your family, Excellency, and much strength indeed. Also to the outgoing governor, Dr. Anders Eugene B. Holliday and Mrs. Holliday, we thank you for your 12 years of service. We put on quite a thank you for you over the past week. And so indeed, we're very happy of the manner in which he received the appreciation from not just the Council of Ministers, but all who took part in the many sessions, ceremonies, and farewell that we did over the past week. I am very, very proud of the execution of said ceremonies, and I would like to thank the Transition Committee, led by Cassandra Janssen, our Secretary General of the Council of Ministers, along with the Secretary General of Parliament, Mr. Garrick Richardson, and the Chief of Cabinet of the Governor, Ms. Mika Coulter, and their teams. Of course, they could not do it alone. Great job. I'd like to also add my congratulations, because as our governors both were homegrown St. Martin young men, having gone through what they could on the island and leaving the island to further their studies and grow themselves, there are also others out there in the diaspora who are making a big name for themselves and St. Martin. So I'd like to take the time to highlight Mr. Casey Carty in the area of cricket and Mr. Denzel Richardson in the area of baseball, who both started here on St. Martin, followed their dreams, and are now making a big name, not just in the sport, but also in good character, in strength, in faith, and in giving back to the youth. Especially Mr. Richardson is also very inspirational in encouraging the youth to be disciplined and to work on not just their craft, but on their minds. And we do know that that gives let's say, for them to serve as role models for our youth to dare to dream, to dare to work hard with dedication and determination and commitment to excellence, and seek out opportunities to grow. In this way, anyone, I believe, can achieve their dreams and their goals within their chosen fields, whether it be sport, art, business, law, education, health, technology, and so forth. We as a government will continue to do all we can with our limited means, though, to create the opportunities to stimulate these types of positive actions and highlight them and applaud them to ensure that they get the positive encouragement instead of only the negative news making the front pages. On Tuesday, yesterday, the Council of Ministers held a meeting with the Monitoring Committee of the reform measures, the Secretaries General and the Secretariat who support them, to get a status update as a Council of Ministers, because we're each involved with our own measures, but it's good to see across the board and hear across the board. The Monitoring Committee made its presentation, and all of the SGs were able to update on their particular measures, where they are right now, as well as challenges and solutions. So one of the great things coming out of that meeting was a good collaborative discussion on the solutions moving forward to improve communication, both internally and across ministries, in order to have the most efficient and effective use of the measures. We're now moving into more of the execution phase, so we must be able to ascertain early what the financial and human resource needs are in order to meet those on time to be able to execute as needed. We are still in the hurricane season, so I would like to take this time to remind us to stay vigilant, do not get complacent. With every week that passes that we do not have a storm, we're always grateful and thankful, but we continue to prepare and look out for our most vulnerable. Also, where COVID is concerned, though it's not a growing or ongoing concern as a pandemic anymore, it still is quite rampant throughout the community. I continue to ask persons who are ill to remain at home, to convalesce as per the requirements of CPS to avoid the further spread. Be safe, continue to use all the safety protocols we've become used to, and let us continue again to protect our most vulnerable. Thank you for your attention thus far. If there are any other questions, please do take the time to ask at this time.
Thank you, Minister Jacobs. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live press briefing of the Council of Ministers for October 12th, 2022. I would now like to invite the media present to pose questions to the ministers.
Thank you, Erno. And good morning, ministers and colleagues. Minister of Vromi, Minister Doran, in your opening remarks, I did not hear you give any update on the trench cleaning contracts. Can you tell me how far they are, and if those contracts are soon to be to be given out. And as I continue with you, Minister Doran, a few weeks ago, if not 2 months or more, you made an announcement here saying that you as Deputy Prime Minister and a Minister of Finance was going to come up with a solution for the vacation allowance for teachers from subsidized school. There is a letter that was sent to teachers from the SVOBE board. It was sent on September 29, stating that the school board have been trying to secure a meeting with you and the Minister of Finance. Can you confirm if that meeting was ever held or if there is a meeting planned to discuss the vacation allowance for teachers who are patiently waiting for this money?
Thank you, Baby, for your question. I'll start by the one regarding the trenches. The engagement letter was recently received from SOAB, which I mentioned a couple of weeks ago as well. At the moment, the trenches are clean, so there's no dire urgency or so to have the contracts distributed. We want to do our due diligence and make sure that we can have it finalized. And the goal of the ministry is either to start on December 1st with the contracts or January 1st, 2023. So that is the process or the trajectory that we are taking at the moment. In reference to what you mentioned regarding the SVOBE school board, that meeting did take place last week. However, where the confusion was that there was a discussion/meeting held with the management and not the board. So that was where the discrepancy was in terms of thinking that the information trickled over. However, that was corrected in the meantime. The meeting was held with the board. And I look forward to solutions coming from that meeting. At the end of the day, I'm not going to divulge or anything, the conversations that took place here publicly. However, the meeting was productive, I must say, and I have a good feeling that it will be resolved very soon. Again, I would like to, on behalf of the government, then say that I know that it cannot be easy for all the teachers and what you're going through, and I hope that this can be resolved within short. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Minister. Mr. Brown, you have a question?
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. This question will go between the Justice Minister and the Prime Minister. Minister, let me start by saying this. Immigration is the criteria for stopping a person from entering St. Martin, Minister. But the question, what I want to ask, who gave Antigua the authority to stop people from coming to St. Martin if they do not submit to the COVID criteria by testing or having vaccine? Is there any agreement so far, ministers? So I expect, the question is between both of you, ministers.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So I have absolutely no idea what basis this particular subject matter is coming from, but every territory has their own rules and regulations. And if a territory is not allowing someone to board a flight, they must know whatever criteria is not being met. So I can't speak on behalf of what is happening on any other territory, but as you said, maybe the Prime Minister is aware of some sort of international regulation that I don't, but I can't give any additional.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Brown, indeed, I do recall Minister Otley mentioning that the process for entering St. Martin would be relaxed, I believe, on the 15th. I was trying to message him to get a confirmation, so I would have the ministry correct me if I'm wrong in writing later this afternoon. However, that's the last update we have. So up until then, the regular protocols exist wherever you're coming from to St. Martin. If you have not filled out your AHAS, they will not allow you on the plane. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, Minister. I would now like to ask Ms. Jacqueline Hoffman if you have a question.
Thank you, Erna. Good morning, ministers. Prime Minister, recently in the National Gazette, a media policy has been published without agreement of the media. The policy is merely a code of conduct for the media, and there's no attention for the role of the ministers towards the media. And I would like to ask, when in this press briefing it is said that questions can be sent in writing to get answers. Not only me, but also my colleagues, we hardly ever get answers, with a few exceptions. And some ministers are not available at all. So my question is, how can the media hold ministers accountable when they cannot be reached?
Yeah.
Thank you for the comments and the questions. Indeed, the media policy got quite some attention some months ago. We stopped the process. We involved in a technical work group people from legal, people from my cabinet, as well as from Department of Communications with the media houses that took part. There were back and forth discussions, suggestions were made, but at the end of the day, there is a discrepancy as to whether we needed full agreement. The full agreement is not required. It is a policy of government. It involves stakeholders, which we have engaged with and which we have adjusted and amended as much as we are willing to do. So at this stage, I believe that there was a request for further follow-up with the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers didn't see it necessary to have any further follow-up, as the technical work group had the mandate with which they would continue. Certain questions which had remained, some were adopted, some were not, and it is for the council to be held accountable in the sense of, yes, there's openness and transparency, which we would like to continue to promote, and ministers have expressed also concern in the manner in which certain questions are asked. And so they will decide, if they don't believe it is in the best interest, whether they will answer or not. I cannot hold any minister with a stick over the head to respond to questions. Indeed, questions can be asked in writing and should be responded to as per government's policy in general, that we respond to queries to government. And so I will forward and have further discussions within the Council of Ministers on that. But indeed, within the policy, it is for the engagement in these press briefings and in other press conferences that the policy is in place, where it is not a strange thing that happens. This happens around the world. So we will do our best to follow up as much as possible, and I will just ask the media to ensure that the questions are towards topics that are relevant, because a minister can always say that they're not going to comment on a particular topic at a particular time. I hope I'm clear. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Any questions from Andrew Dick, TV15?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Erno. Just as a clarification, mostly from the Minister of Romy, GEBE, we haven't heard anything for a while. Can we get an update? An investigation was going on. And also the Minister of Justice, as far as the gun policy is concerned. You recently published a very lengthy release concerning that. Any responses you've received indicating any concerns or anything with what you have in your policy? Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Mr. Duran.
It was a clarification, was a question actually, I think, so I don't know. What I want to emphasize here, and I know me and Ms. Shah had this conversation a lot, there is no shareholder rep. Anything that is done is mandated via the Council of Ministers. Over the last couple of months, I've been deeply involved with GB with regards to the recruitment, which I was mandated to do. In regards to the investigation, I'd rather not comment on it, and I don't know if the Prime Minister have any points to highlight. But if an investigation is ongoing or anything is ongoing, I don't think it's ideal to comment in a public forum. But if the question is if it is ongoing, yes, it is ongoing. I don't know if PM, you have any comments. Thank you.
The only thing thank you, Minister. The only thing I would want to add is that we are receiving bi-weekly updates, and it is internal matters. As such, the public meeting of Parliament will, I'm definitely accountable to the Parliament. I have to respond as much as I know, and so we'll be preparing to return to Parliament to respond to questions, but I will await any further discussion after that.
And to my question, Mr. Dick, We only received communication from one person within the media who wanted some questions clarified or some details, and we have since provided those answers. The email address that was provided in the press release, anyone who has any further questions, need any clarification, updates, guidance, can proceed to provide an email with those questions via that medium, and we will respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We can now go over to round two. Bibi Shah.
Thank you, Erno. I'll ask a follow-up, Prime Minister, to my colleague's question regarding GEBE before I go into my second question. Can you tell us if this investigation that is ongoing at NVGEBE, will it be completed prior to the end date for the suspension of the statutory director? Based on the Articles of Incorporation of GEBE, a statutory director can only be suspended for a period of 2 months. We are already in the second month. So I'd like to know if that investigation that is ongoing, if it will finish by the end of the second month, because then something would have to give with the statutory director. My second question, Prime Minister, I'm asking you this because you held the post as Minister of Education, I think in 2016 to 2017, and now as Prime Minister. There are a number of teachers that have been expressing concerns with union leaders, president of union members that are principal of schools while they are president of the union. For example, the Y2, the teacher, the president of the union, Mr. Johnson, is also a principal of the school. Some teachers are claiming victimization. They're claiming they're having all sorts of problems. Who do they turn to? Because clearly there is a conflict of interest, and there seems not to be any law or policy in place where this matter can be regulated. But who do teachers who find themselves in questionable or any kind of position, who can they turn to when their union leader is the principal of the school to which they're teaching?
I will start with your elucidation or clarification question on NVGEBE. The investigation was set forth knowing the time frame in which it has to operate. And so the organization will be given the opportunity to do what they need to do. And if and when the time arrives that the time has elapsed, they would have to have their strategies in place in terms of how they will proceed. So I will not at this point go into any details as to whether they're on time, whether they're not on time. We're getting our updates, and I trust that they are on track with what they intend to do and how they are assessing the situation at NVGEBE. So we'd like to give that the opportunity. I think some of the questions have a bit of a cross interest in the sense of, I think I clearly stated that we might want to know certain things and we might ask these questions, but at times as government, in the interest of good corporate governance, in the interest of a protection of certain information that is not for the public, we are not able to divulge certain things. And also when it determines persons, you're not going to go into details in the public about things that are ongoing, and it relates to personnel matters. So I'd like for the general public, as well as those who are may be curious, to refrain from speculation, refrain from hearsay on non-factual matters, because at the end of the day, every outlet is considered news, but not all have the facts. As you move to the question on the Ministry of ECYS and the minister not being present, I won't go into any details, but indeed, from my experience back then, there was usually the case that the union leader, if an employee, would have a paid leave of absence. I do not know why that is not the case at the moment, but in every job there is hierarchy. So if usually when persons within, let's say, my own ministry have an issue at a level and they come directly to me, they are still sent back to the source. You must show that you've attempted to have discussions and/or meetings at that level If that doesn't happen, then you can escalate to the next level. So that is basically what I would encourage anyone to do in that situation. And even, for instance, people go to the ombudsman. If you haven't dealt directly with whomever you have the challenge with or have proof of such in writing, the ombudsman sends you right back there. So you must follow the proper trajectory. Any teacher with a challenge, any body with a challenge must have direct communication with their direct supervisor or boss, and there's always someone above them. So once there's no response, you take it to the next level. There is, for some schools, school boards, and for others, the one where the union leader is the manager, there's public school DPE, which falls under the minister. So there's a trajectory of DPE, Secretary General, and the minister to follow. Yes?
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Brown.
Question to the Minister of Roaming. Recently, Minister, there was some accusation about, your ministry. And now it is up now for public tendering. Minister, who is forthcomer have the opportunity also for this tendering, people who are in it before?
The idea behind a public tender is just that. It's public, so any and everyone, once you fit the requirements, whether it's business license, etc., they have the right to participate. And I mentioned also it's important for them, the interested parties, to attend the information session, because in said information session on the 17th, you can ask all the questions you have pertaining to the particular subject matter. So in a public tender, the entire public is welcome to participate. And once in the information session, they can get elucidation as to what the requirements are.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Hoffman? Oh, sorry. Prime Minister wants to add to this.
Yes, I did get an update from the Ministry of VSR. As of November 1st, all measures such as testing and vaccination info will no longer be required. So it is as of November 1st. And the AHAS will be only utilized for data purposes. So not for what is being done now, but just for data purposes that is needed at the country level. So the testing and vaccinations will be lifted as of the need to do that as of November 1st.
Thank you, Minister, for that additional update. Ms. Hoffman?
Thank you, Erno. Prime Minister, you just talked about AHAS. This is one of the subjects that I cannot ask or get answers about. Who should I ask that to? And my question is for the Minister of Justice. Several weeks ago, I asked why St. Martin has chosen to have only one judge in first instance in complicated cases. I've not received an update on that. Also on the K-base situation with the pig situation, the Victim Support Bureau, the police committee, police brutality. I understand that Ms. Cassandra Richardson, in the meantime, works for the Ministry of VSR, conducting a national health assessment. If you just could provide answers on that.
So, Ms. Hoffman, I know for a fact I'm one of those ministers who definitely responds to your emails. And the questions that or the topics that you've just mentioned were responded to via email. Yes.
About the judge, no.
About the judge as well. But
No.
Nevertheless, I'll follow up on it so that we can ensure that you responded. But I know for a fact I'm one of those ministers that you definitely get answers from, even via email.
I don't say that I don't get answers from you. I do get answers. Louise responds very quickly, but there are certain topics that have not been answered.
And when it comes to the matter with the pigs, that was an answer that was provided by the Ministry of VSR. But nevertheless, I'll follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Labega. I'd like to address the statement that Ms. Hoffman is saying that she asked questions about AHAS. A question was just asked about entry into St. Martin that relates to AHAS, and I just answered it. So I really don't understand what other question you would have about AHAS at this time. If so, please submit it in writing to the Ministry of VSA, and this is why we try to have some level of rules within the media press briefing. Indeed, I will do the necessary follow-up with the ministry, as I'm currently the Minister of VSA, acting Minister of VSA, to ensure that which answers are still pending. However, as I mentioned before, if something is of a sensitive nature or cannot be divulged, what I will at least ask is that that be part of the response.
Thank you, Minister. It is clear at this point that any further questions related to AHAS, etc., should be directed to the Ministry of VSA for further clarification. Mr. Andrew Dick, any additional questions?
Thank you. I hope I can ask about the airport, Prime Minister. Yeah. Okay. The reconstruction. I know that the Council of Ministers wanted to get more information considering the delay. Is this still the plan? Anything that the Council of Ministers feel about this particular situation, especially with the delay and the high season?
Yes, indeed, this was brought to our attention. We held an emergency meeting with the airport boards. We were given an update, but no, let's say, hard and fast solution was provided at that time, and they were given also, I believe, 2 weeks to come back to the council with their solution and clear strategy moving forward, whereby then the full picture would be known. Of course, we're dealing with an airport that is in construction while in operation, and with the necessarily the expected challenges one can expect with that. So we did hear some complaints, especially they came directly to us, that people weren't able to work with the noise, etc. And so some of the operations had to move during the nighttime. There's also the global increase in prices for products and services and for transportation that is playing a role on all projects. So there needs to be a reassessment done, and with the latest challenge faced outside of those two aspects will have an impact on the project, and we're awaiting a clear update from the airport as to the way forward and how this will be resolved in terms of timing, etc. It has our concern, and we will be following up with them as per the dates that we gave them to respond to us. As shareholder, we have to hold these government-owned companies accountable, yes, but as I just want to continue to state, you're asking whether you can ask a question. Indeed, you can ask a question. You can also ask questions directly to the airport that is in charge of the management of it. We are dealing with several boards in between management and will not go into operational matters in any board, if that is clear. We only, in terms of good corporate governance, hold accountable, and we hold accountable in the broadest sense to ensure that these services are available for the general public of St. Martin, and we'll do everything we have to do in that regard. But the day-to-day management is something as shareholder we cannot be involved in.
Thank you, Minister Jacobs. Given our time, we can accommodate a third round, ministers and members of the press. So with that, we can go over to a third round of questions. PB Shah.
Thank you, Arno. Prime Minister, can you share with us if an agreement has been reached with the former CEO of the harbor, Mr. Mark Mingo? These past weeks, he have been on all media calling for government to have some kind of settlement rather than going to court. Do you believe that government will be able to reach an out-of-court settlement with Mr. Mingo?
I have no information on this at this time. So I would defer that to the ministry that's dealing with it, if they are, and have them provide an update if that is available.
Thanks, Minister. So, Lyndon, no further questions?
Yes, I go by order. I was waiting on you.
Okay.
Yes. Question to the Minister of Justice. Minister of Justice recently mentioned about a formal grace period. People are waiting, excited to be documented, Minister. What they want to know, finally, yes, the time and the requirements. They are ready to do the right thing, Minister. So they are waiting on you. So tell the people.
Thank you. Once again, I just want to reiterate that this opportunity is for employers who have had persons employed more than for 5 years or more to be able to do right by their employees and the country. Okay, so I don't want it again to be perceived that this is a blanket approach for any and everyone. There is a criteria to be met. By extension to that, I do believe within this week, if not today, there will be a publication posted via social media that gives indication as to what documents must be provided by the individual, as well as what documents employers or companies are required to submit. So before the week is out, those publications will be published. Those publications will come out. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Ms. Jacqueline Hoffman.
Thank you, Erno. Prime Minister, just for clarification, the editor of the Daily Herald, Gordon Snow, sent the questions to the Minister of VSA in writing with no reply. That was 1.5 weeks ago, like 10 days ago. I wanted to ask you, what is the government policy with nominating or employing direct family members of ministers and next of kin? Also for projects of the government.
Your question is to the Prime Minister.
I didn't get the last part. I didn't get the last part.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What the government policy is for employing a next of kin of ministers in government, be it for permanent jobs or for temporary employment at projects?
Any request that has been made for information to deal with your first question will be responded to, as I stated before. And if it cannot be responded to for whatever reason, I will request the ministries to have someone at least indicate such. I think I said that before, and I will have them check into that request for information as well. As per government's policy, by law, every and anybody can apply for a job as long as they're qualified. And we have a transparent process where you have to be vetted by a committee of 3 persons, including personnel affairs and the department that is hiring, and usually either another department head or the SG, depending on the level of the function. After that process, all applicants, after having submitted letters, there's a selection of letters. They're interviewed, the qualified candidates who, based on their letters, appear to be qualified. There is no distinction at that time who's family of who. When the person is selected as the best person for the job, an advice is made that goes through a process through the respective ministry as well as the Ministry of Finance, and is signed off ultimately by the minister within that ministry and the Minister of Finance. If for any reason the person that is selected is a family member, in the second up to the second degree, the minister cannot sign that advice. But that does not mean the person cannot be hired. Someone else, once that person is found to be fit for the job, a replacement minister can sign off on it based on the advice of the organization. I'm hoping that I've clarified that. To the second degree. Beyond the second degree, the minister is allowed to sign, according to our law.
Thank you, Minister Jacobs. Any questions from Andrew Dick?
Yes, thank you. Prime Minister, considering the meeting that was postponed in Parliament with the 12.5%, I know that just before you left, you were looking forward for the meeting to be reconvened. That has not been done yet.
Yes, and indeed, since Parliament has returned and since the whole transition of governor and all of that, I have requested that the meeting be convened as soon as possible, and I'm still awaiting that date. I don't make those decisions, unfortunately.
Thank you, Minister. And with that, at this point, I'd love to thank the honorable ministers. I just got an indication from our Prime Minister that she wants to add something. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Minister.
Erno. I did forget to mention that we are in the month of October. As of October 1st, we didn't have a press briefing last week, which would have been the first in October. As you would see, I do my best to represent for breast cancer this month. Most people are, and many organizations are as well. And I want to encourage all persons to definitely check your breasts. Prevention is better than cure. Many persons, because of early detection, are alive today and are winning the battle. And so I encourage all those within the struggle to continue to fight valiantly with their families, and our prayers for strength, courage, and determination goes out to all of you. Be conscientious, check yourselves. Also, men are asked to check themselves. It's not something that's only for women. And in general, also to guard your mental health. We did also celebrate Mental Health Day during this week, and also Teacher Appreciation Day in the month of October. So all of those were celebrations we missed as a result of not being in the press briefing last week. And I just wanted to make sure that we conveyed our congratulations to all of the survivors and to all those who have celebrated up until now. Thank you, and God bless St. Martin.
Thank you, Minister, and all ministers, members of the media, radio listeners, online and TV viewers. We've reached the end of today's press briefing of the Council of Ministers, October 12th, 2022. We appreciate you joining us. We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the ministers' responses. And with that, have a safe day to everyone.